Hello, my name is host Eric, and I am the Talking with Famous People. And tonight I'm going to be concluding this three-part series of videos on a title called Openness, Difference, and Change. Right, openness to waiting, difference, and change. That's what it's called. So we talked about waiting or weighing things. Weighting meaning impacting their weight, actively feeling the weight of something, or trying to attain the significance of it. Weighing simply being trying to measure the significance of it. And we talked about openness to difference and how that's different from change. So that in any given secure setup, if you've got your life system set up and it's really secure, you'll be more open to integrating more heterogeneity into that life system than if it feels insecurity, in which case you'll feel less open to integrating heterogeneity into that life system. So remember, an individual human life is comprised of multiple different systems, and that includes reason, the process by which we articulate and determine positions, axioms, common sense truths, things like that. There's additionally a frame of reference that could broadly be called emotion, but that can be subdivided into lots of different frames of reference. There's, romantic relationship, love kind of stuff is one of the frames of reference, and parental relationships are another. And you can divide those into types of relationships. You could divide those into, you could taxonomy in a million different possible ways. But the point is here that when you go through life, no matter how you're framing things, no matter what cognitive functions you're using, no matter what values you're prioritizing, it's going to go along with corresponding openness and closedness to different kinds of things. So if you're in the middle of something, you are not open at that moment to feeling the impacts, to weighing things, to weighting things. If you are in the middle of something, you're also not open to feeling how to integrate heterogeneity into a more successful existing whole that necessarily is going to be defined, at least in part, by what is the similarities of the constituents, right? So if you're talking about a group that is something like a team, a debate team, I might think, well, the best debate team is going to be homogeneous fairly. It's going to be comprised of NTs, and the heterogeneity will be narrowly construed. So you've got a couple of different kinds of intuition, a couple of different kinds of thinking, and that's basically it as far as dominant functions go, top two functions go. Well, I might make that argument that that's more efficient. And then if, in fact, that squad were to be hugely successful, at that point, instead of saying, see, that's exactly what we need to do, we need to be more narrow, I'd be more likely psychologically, if not logically, but psychologically I'd be more likely to then be more open to a more heterogeneous team. Now, because it's a competitive zero-sum sport type of activity, coaches have a way of prioritizing the logical conclusion over the psychological impulse to be more open to heterogeneity in instances when the existing system with its current level of homogeny is secure. Because, of course, in zero-sum competition, nothing's ever really very secure. Okay, so that's just reviewing what we talked about already. Now let's talk more directly about the issue of openness to change. So openness to change is a distinct type of openness that plays out differently than openness to difference. Because openness to difference is about incorporating more values even when they're less complementary, basically. It's saying, yeah, I promote diversity, by which I mean it's okay for us to sacrifice the identity of a given group or community or meta entity. It's better to harm that identity, or to run afoul of it, to make it more mushy, or to provide less focused benefits for certain community members, that it be more inclusive. That would be a tolerance for difference. Tolerance for change says, well, the modality is, for me, if you have a very high tolerance for change, the modality is, if it's new, if it's novel, it gets prioritized. That doesn't mean that it gets necessarily incorporated into the identity of the community as a whole, or the thing as a whole, or whatever, because that just means, oh, this is new, I want to see it, is a rule of sorts that you can reliably expect to be followed, but not all new things are received the same way, even though they're all welcomed the same way. So, in that regard, somebody could have a high tolerance for change and not necessarily a high tolerance for difference. Regarding the weighting issue, regardless of whether you have a high tolerance for change or a low tolerance for change, you will experience weight in coordination with the payoff metrics of your framework. So if you feel a great deal of satisfaction from knowing that a task needs to be done, it's on a list, and getting it done in a timely fashion, then that's where you're going to get your payoff from, and you'll behave accordingly. And similarly, if you prefer get payoff from newness, then you're going to behave accordingly there as well. And as you are engaged in the process of prioritizing novelty, it's necessarily the case that you are not prioritizing difference, because it's a continuation of the existing pattern of prioritizing novelty. So that would be not different at all. So in that regard, you can see how these things preclude or necessitate the other according to the circumstances. What kind of circumstances are these referring to? Well, you're going to be talking about work shit. If you have a really stressed out time at work, you can reflect upon yourself in this situation. Well, how is this impacting me actually psychologically? What is the actual impact of my identity? Am I less open to difference? In other words, am I trying to excise the less complementary values from my own circle of life? So that, because those are the ones that provide the struggle, right? And there's nothing that's inherently wrong with that. We tend to think of from a relativist value framework that to reduce diversity is a bad thing. Well, not in any given system. It is to reduce diversity of systems is a bad thing for sure. So you don't want to at all constrain. Well, I mean, with some with some exceptions, but you generally don't want to at all constrain the ability of individual entities to engage in systems architectures, building their own systems and sets, and defining membership in those sets, and defining rules of those systems and stuff like that. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to have prioritize diversity in every system. It's not going to be the ideal conclusion. When you say the word diversity nowadays, we usually are talking about people, and we're usually talking about either country of origin or ethnicity or something dumb like that. So that's not what I mean at all when I'm talking about diversity. I mean in the literal sense of the word, more heterogeneity rather than more homogeny. And so in any given system, that might not even include people, right? It might just be about, well, how are we going to manage the system of this garden? I'm the head gardener. Well, am I going to replace plants a lot with new plants? Am I going to prioritize annuals that involve a lot of opportunity to change what we got going on? Or am I going to prioritize big, long-growing things that require less, that don't allow you to update much, but that provide potentially a different kind of, at least, long-range payoff? So that's the issue for openness and where your openness lies. I think it's worth noting that when we're under the most pressure, when we're most stressed, and we are in the least optimal situational, we're in the least optimal situation, for some types at least, maybe not all, we're likely to be least open. That you want to narrow the scope of what's in front of you. You want to narrow the scope of your metaphysics such that you can just focus on the problem at hand on a simple, efficacious kind of way. Like, all right, I don't give a fuck about global warming. I don't give a fuck about endangered ocean crabs. I don't give a fuck about anything. We're stranded on this fucking island, and I know you're a vegetarian, Mary, but eat the fucking fish, right? All of a sudden, in that kind of a context, what goes right out the window? Difference. Like, I'm a mediator, and I think you're being illogical. This is not the time to be emotional, Mary. We are stranded on a desert island, and I'm getting pissed off that you're giving me any pushback at all to my core values. So we're just going to roll my way because I have no room right now in this crazy stressful situation where our lives are on the line for your nonsense, right? Well, what that means is I'm excising difference because I'm under more pressure. I'm less secure. If you are a change person like me, and I'm in that situation, I'm going to probably excise difference. Yeah, I'm also going to excise change. I'm going to say, look, right now, I don't want to try anything new. We need to figure out an actual way to get to this fucking island. I'm sure. The important thing is not for me to play around and come up with some cool little idea or whatever. It's for us to get off the fucking island. So let's put a handle on this shit. How do you get off an island? You build a boat, okay? No, we're not going to build Eric's magical flying dragon machine that falls straight directly into the ocean and then we all both die. It's a bad idea. We're going to make a boat, okay? That's me excising change, right? And in high pressure situations, we tend to excise our openness. The first one being, of course, waiting. That is the opposite of the other two. So if you are feeling the significance of the moment, you are likely very much to be excising openness to difference and change. And if you're feeling the openness to difference and change highly, then you're likely deprioritizing waiting in the moment because you're saying, I'm focused on potentialities more. That I can see how heterogeneity might help us. I'm bored with the existing thing. It's in a rut. It's a change stasis thing. So anyway, that's my thoughts on openness to waiting, openness to difference, and openness to change, and popenness to cheese. That means how much are you able to get your cheese to look like the Pope? And you can score up to 10 points for that. So please make your cheese look like the Pope and submit a picture, and I'll put the winner up on a video.